All right, welcome back to Nerd Thug Radio. I'm the Captain Joey Savage.
Beep, boop, beep. I'm Zach, the robot.
And I'm the intern.
And we're still minus Corey DLG with his gas experiments. So we're just going to keep going on as always. Hopefully you take some Tums, Corey DLG.
I think we're past that.
Yeah, maybe so. Check us out, nerdthugradio.com, facebook.com/nerdthugradio. Get ready this week. We're going to hit up for our Extra Life Mario Kart tournament. That's all I'm going to plug right now. So, Mr. Colt Baldridge in episode 77 of Nerd Thug Radio. This is the first Colt segment we've ever done, a la Nico DLG segment that we usually roast him.
Expectations are real low here.
Yeah, so go right
Real
ahead.
low.
Go ahead. Nail it. Come on.
Hey guys, Discount Nico DLG here. Today I want to talk
My
about...
favorite part, a little before you start, is every time he does that little stupid bit where he's like, hey, Nico DLG here, coming live. He starts laughing.
Right.
Like he's cracking
And
his
it's not
Even he
live.
knows it's lame.
It's recorded.
Yeah, and he's I don't know.
Even he
Okay.
knows it's
I don't
lame.
know. Go ahead.
So, I
And
want to
you're
talk
more
about...
lame.
Oh, I am. But, yeah, just cover it up. Anyway, I want to talk about perspective.
Okay.
And how your views on something can change over time in light of new information and viewing things in a different way.
It's called marriage.
Yeah.
Moving on.
A while back, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine about
False. You have no
Marvel
friends.
Civil War, and he said something along the lines of, "If you did not sign with Captain America, you are wrong." And it was
So basically, just to set the premise, Civil War was a story inside of
The Marvel Universe.
the Marvel Universe that pitted heroes against heroes. It was Captain America versus Iron Man. It was basically over the Superhuman Hero Registration Act.
Basically, if you had superpowers, you had to register.
Right.
yes,
Captain America said that that's not
Un-American.
un-American, and Iron Man said it is American and it could help people.
yes, and I think that
It all stemmed from a bunch of dumb kids who think they could stop people.
yeah, I think that
Kids.
there definitely is merit, and there is a very, very good argument that can be made with protecting privacy and individual liberty of the superheroes. However, I want to spend this time to make a case for Team Iron Man and the Superhero Registration Act and the Sokovia Accords, and here is why.
Here's your make your case now. Go.
It is very easy for us to side with Captain America and condemn Iron Man completely when we live in a world that does not bear the human cost of superhero actions. I think that I think that when you're talking about world-ending existential threats like Ultron dropping a city on top of the planet to wipe
Ultron,
out all of
he's
humanity, I think it's acceptable to say that a lot of people will say the Avengers should do everything possible to stop that and to save the world.
True.
That's not where this argument is about. The argument is about in the more nuance, when it's the not world-ending activities that do cause a lot of damage. To put a hypothetical, let's say there is a huge threat out there, and it's not world-ending, but it's very severe, and the Avengers roll up and they stop it. But in the process of doing that, all of Houston is destroyed. Everything you know, everyone you love, where you work, where you eat, space cadets, everything gone. Now, knowing that, are you going to say, yeah, I'm going to use Vulcan logic and say that the benefits of the many outweigh the few, and I'm okay with losing everything, including my life, in order to stop that?
But how does registration prevent that?
Correct.
I need
think-
you to make a case for registration, not for holding back on power.
I
Correct.
think the argument is more of, I think it's more of the in line with the movie and the Sokovia Accords, and less with registration. I think there has to be some kind of checks and balances in order to keep these keep superheroes accountable. For example, if you want to contextualize it with something modern day, let's say there's a superhero who decides that the North Korean nuclear incident has gone too far, and they decide to go out and punch Kim Jong-il in the nose. Now that's going to create a huge international incident because that one person decided that they're going to go out and do that on their own and attack a foreign power.
So you think heroes shouldn't operate? Your premise here is heroes shouldn't operate unless they're authorized to do so by the government as like an attack dog.
I'm not sure about operating by the government, but the Marvel Universe lives in a world where all the heroes make the right decisions at the end of the day. I mean, there are complications, there are nuances, but at the end of the day, you can trust Steve Rogers and Tony Stark and Bruce Banner are going to make the right decision every day. You don't have a situation in which Captain America isn't Steve Rogers, and instead it's the comedian. There is no Rorschach equivalent in the Marvel Universe. You don't have a superhero who works in their self-interest against the others.
But okay, so I guess my question is then, what do you see? The Sokovia Accord said that no superhuman's going to operate without authorization from the government.
Correct.
Right? From a voted on party, the UN, whatever.
Right.
And or if you're superhuman, you have to register.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So what's your conjecture here? What do you want the registration? Do you want all superpowered individuals to register and not to use their powers unless it's okayed by the government?
I'm not necessarily saying that it's okay. It's okayed by the government. I think that
A government?
yeah, a government. I think that there
Government.
definitely should be oversight if it is an incident that is not going to be existential and end the world.
So here's, I'm of two minds on this, and I get where you're coming from. You're belaboring the point, but I get where you're coming from. So I just read 2 series of books by this guy named Darius Brasher. One of them is called the Cape series, and one of them is called the Superhero Detective series. In this universe this guy has created, all metahumans, superheroes, have to register as soon as they're found, as soon as it's discovered that they have it. Mm-hmm. And then if they want to use their superhuman abilities, only if they ever plan to use them, they have to go through what are called the hero trials, and then they become a card carrying member. In the book, it's likened several times to, if you want to be a lawyer, you can study on your own, you can do whatever you want, but you still have to pass the bar to practice law.
Yes.
It's similar to that. It's very well thought out, and your Kim Jong-il example is actually funny because in the book, the reason that this law was passed, or in these books, the reason this law was passed, that in World War II, instead of the U.S. bombing Japan, this metahuman who could create nuclear explosions bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Nagasaki!
So it's an interesting premise, and the guy in this book handles it pretty well. There's a lot of heroes that operate outside of it. There's a lot of, obviously none of the villains register, and that's to my point. The bad guys aren't registering.
Right, they're not going to.
I see this guy makes a really good case for it. I think a better case than Marvel did, actually, in the explanation and how it would actually be executed. I can also see the other side of the coin, though. When you're registered, somebody's keeping tabs on you. And eventually, that's going to come down to where they're going to either separate you or quarantine you. You don't register people to exist. And that's what I have a big problem with. With the Superhero Registration Act. Number one, I don't think it's going to prevent what it's intended to prevent.
No, it's not going to.
And number two, you can't register people to exist, to be.
Yeah, you do have a point in that you cannot say that they cannot exist. Though the idea of saying that you must be somewhat licensed and qualified to exercise the superpowers is a fair point.
Now, part of it, like with them saying that you need to register and we'll train you to be a better superhero, like I could see that part. Like,
and that's what they do. They in this story they have a college where you go before and you get trained and stuff, and then you take what are called the hero trials, and it has a 10% success rate and like an 80% death by failure rate in this thing. So like the people who graduate, who become what are called heroes, people who are licensed, they become, essentially they have limited police powers as well. So like they're protected in terms of like arresting people in the street. They're required and obligated to do so, things like that.
Which is the whole spinoff of where the Civil War came from. Is I think it's the New Warriors who were filming like a reality show. They're a bunch of teenagers, untrained, and they decided they were going to try to stop somebody, and a whole school got blown up. And then that kind of preempted the whole, well, we need to register these people. We need to train these people, which that part I understand. But then when you watch like what Tony Stark did, and he started using villains, and he created his own Thor to help his cause, and then it's kind of what happens. A lot of government stuff that's backed is there's all kinds of wishy-washy stuff in the background.
Especially if some kind of database is compromised when, say, Hydra infiltrates.
And it will be. It always will be.
There is that security
When you keep records
risk
of people like that, it's always going to happen.
Which you see in the DC universe where Batman keeps records on all these people, and then when those records get leaked out, that's when stuff hits the fan.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You know, so...
I don't know. I'm of two minds. Like,
I see one point of it if you want to register and then to train people, but then at the same token... You're going to register people to be your watchdog, and they can only do what, you can only use your powers when we call upon you.
Right.
And so when you see Steve in the movie say, that I just can't stand by and let something happen.
Right.
I've got to do.
And that's
something
why I
about
like this book a little better. They're trained, they're licensed, like a lawyer, and then they take things into their own hands, just like police would.
Yeah, and there is limited autonomy, so when there is a crunch moment emergency, that then they can deploy immediately to remedy the situation. I think that would be a more reasonable
Which is what the
compromise.
Avengers is, anyways. Like the Avengers were tapped in with the government, anyways, and so when there was a big in the comics, and so when there was a
Yeah.
big issue, you know, who's the president calling? He's calling the Avengers. Oh, we need your help. Blah 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 blah. So I don't know. It was.
The Avengers are, you have to agree, they are a bit paragons.
I probably would never side with Tony Stark.
I would.
At any point.
I love Tony Stark.
I mean, I do too, but in this,
He's my guy. No,
in this
I'm
instance-
real leery of anything that says you have to register.
Yeah,
if
in
you
this
exist.
instance, yeah. I mean, no, I like Tony Stark too. He's a playboy who drinks a lot and has a lot of women. That sounds fun.
So,
And he's intelligent.
what if you
I've got
registered?
the brain the size of a planet.
You're simple.
I am simple.
What if you registered but didn't disclose your personal identity? Say, like,
And then you have Spider-Man, who the
They
first one to
have
reveal himself.
They have in this story, they have to reveal who they are because they get tested when they're children, right? Or not when they're children, when their powers manifest. But that's locked down and supposedly held close. So,
and part of the reason that these superheroes,
but it's locked down like a criminal record,
right? But part of the reason these superheroes hide their real identity is for the same reason you see in all the comics, like to protect their loved ones. And what happens in Spider-Man? As soon as someone finds out who Peter Parker is, what's the first thing they do? They go after Aunt May, or they go after Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy, whomever. That's the reason why they conceal it. So I don't know. Registering, like you said, registering for anything like that, I don't even like to register my car.
It makes me nervous.
I don't even like doing that.
That's weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
You're
I
weird.
shouldn't have to.
I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about though, because you're right. Your perspective can shift easily.
It can. Let's shift out to Rick. When we come back, we're going to wrap this thing up. You're listening to Nerd Thug Radio on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1. All right, one more segment.
whew. Oh, man. That was a good segment. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good.